Family doesn't betray. You're no longer my family.
The text message that destroyed my life came at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, lighting up my phone like a neon sign advertising my own humiliation. Can't wait for the celebration tomorrow. Double parking at the Marriott, sharing the prize. I stared at Beth's phone, which she'd left charging in our kitchen while she showered upstairs. The group chat showed 4 participants: my wife, my brother John, that slick bastard Mark Halden, and Dana, Beth's gossipy best friend who'd never liked me anyway. My name was Sam Tate Parrish, and I was about to become the most famous loser in Ironville. Let me paint you a picture of this charming Rust Belt paradise. Ironville used to make steel. Now it makes meth and broken dreams. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone else's business, and privacy died sometime around 1987 with the last factory closure. I co-owned Parrish Electric with my brother John, a business our mother Ruth had built from nothing after Dad died young. Beth Parrish, nee Summers, had been Ironville High's prom queen back when that actually meant something. 36 years old now, she still carried herself like she deserved a crown, even if the kingdom had turned to rust around her. We'd been married 16 years, had 2 daughters, Bew, 15, and Bree, 13, and I'd honestly thought we were happy. Shows what I knew. The shower was still running upstairs when I scrolled through more messages. Dana's contribution made my stomach turn. Poor Tate won't know what hit him. Mark's got stamina for days, and John knows all his weak spots. John, my own brother, 3 years older, stocky, where I was lean, handling the residential side while I managed commercial contracts. We'd shared everything growing up. Toys, secrets, dreams of expanding the business. Apparently we were sharing wives now too. Mark Halden owned Halden Tech Solutions, which was a fancy name for I fix computers and overcharge idiots. He drove a BMW, wore expensive suits, and had been sniffing around Beth at every Chamber of Commerce event for the past year. I'd noticed, but figured Beth was too smart to fall for his obvious BS. Wrong again. The shower stopped. I quickly placed Beth's phone back exactly where I'd found it and retreated to my workshop in the basement. My hands shook as I pretended to organize tools that were already perfectly organized. 16 years of marriage, 2 kids, a business we'd built together. And she was planning to celebrate my humiliation with my own brother and some wannabe tech mogul. The basement workshop had always been my sanctuary. Neat rows of electrical components, wire strippers, multimeters, and junction boxes. Everything labeled, everything in its place. Unlike my life, apparently. I heard Beth moving around upstairs, probably getting ready for another girls' night out that I now knew was anything but. The floorboards creaked in that familiar pattern, from bathroom to bedroom to closet. She'd be choosing something sexy, something that would make Mark's eyes light up while John watched and waited his turn. My phone buzzed. A text from Rick Kowalski, my buddy from high school who'd become Ironville's most sarcastic cop. Heard some interesting gossip at Murphy's bar tonight. You might want to know what people are saying. Too late for that, Rick. I was already living it. I climbed the stairs to find Beth applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. Red. Definitely not for my benefit. Going out again? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Dana's having relationship problems. Girl talk, you know how it is. She didn't even look at me. Don't wait up. I never do anymore. That got her attention. She turned, and for a moment I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt? Regret? No, just irritation that I dared to comment. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, Beth. Have fun with Dana. She grabbed her purse and keys. I will. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. I watched through the curtains as she drove away in the Honda I'd bought her last Christmas, heading toward what I now knew was going to be a very different kind of celebration than she'd told me. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my recliner, staring at the family photos on the mantel. Beth in her wedding dress, radiant and young, the girls as toddlers, gap-toothed and giggling, John and me at the business opening, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning like we owned the world. Maybe we had, back then, before Beth got restless, before John got greedy, before Mark Halden decided he wanted to add my wife to his collection of expensive toys. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo message from an unknown number. The image showed Beth, John, Mark, and Dana at a downtown hotel bar, raising champagne glasses in a toast. Beth was practically sitting in Mark's lap while John leered from across the table. The message read, "Thought you should know what your family's really up to. A friend." I finished my bourbon and poured another. Then I opened my laptop and started researching. If Beth and John thought they were going to destroy me quietly, They were about to learn something important about Tate Parrish. I don't go down easy, and I never go down alone. The celebration they were planning was going to be memorable, all right, just not in the way they expected. I woke up on the couch at 6 a.m., neck stiff and head pounding. Beth's side of the bed hadn't been slept in. Her car wasn't in the driveway. The girls were getting ready for school, moving through their morning routine with the practiced efficiency of teenagers who'd learned not to rely on their parents for much. Beau grabbed cereal bars from the pantry while Bree packed her soccer gear. "Where's Mom?" Bree asked, not really looking at me. "She stayed at Dana's. Girl talk ran late," Beau snorted. At 15, she was already too smart for comfortable lies. "Right, girl talk." I drove them to school in silence, watching other families through the windshield. Normal families where fathers didn't discover their wives' affairs through stolen text messages, where brothers didn't betray brothers, where life stayed in neat, manageable lanes. Parrish Electric occupied a converted warehouse on Industrial Drive, all exposed brick and high ceilings. Ruth had bought the building cheap during the recession and turned it into something impressive. Our fleet of white vans filled the parking lot, each one bearing the blue lightning bolt logo I'd designed years ago. Mary Kowalski, Rick's wife and our office manager, looked up when I walked in. She'd been with us 8 years, knew every detail of the business, and had a sixth sense for trouble. "You look like heck," she said cheerfully. "Coffee's fresh." "Thanks. John in yet?" "His truck's here, but his office door's been closed all morning." "Want me to buzz him?" "No, I'll handle it." John's office was at the far end of the building, deliberately separated from mine by Ruth's design. She'd always said we needed our own spaces to avoid brotherly conflicts. Apparently, she hadn't thought about what would happen when the conflict moved into my bedroom. I knocked once and entered without waiting for permission. John looked up from his computer, and I saw guilt flash across his face before he managed to school his expression. "Morning, Tate. You're in early." "Couldn't sleep. Funny thing about insomnia. Gives you time to think." "Yeah, what about—" I closed the door behind me and took a seat across from his desk. John was 3 years older but looked 10 years younger, all smooth confidence and easy charm. The kind of guy women noticed, unlike his boring younger brother who preferred electrical schematics to small talk. About family, about loyalty, about what it means to be a Parrish. John's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That's pretty philosophical for 8 in the morning. "I'm feeling philosophical lately. See, I've been wondering about trust. How you build it, how you maintain it, how quickly it can disappear when someone decides their Johnson is more important than their principles." The color drained from John's face. "Tate, I don't know what you think you know, but I know enough." I leaned forward. "The question is, what are we going to do about it?" "Look, if this is about Beth, don't." My voice came out harder than I'd intended. "Don't say her name, not yet, not until you decide whether you want to try lying to me or if you're ready to be honest for the first time in months." John stared at me for a long moment. Then he laughed, actually laughed, and leaned back in his chair. "You always were too smart for your own good, little brother. Smart enough to know when I'm being played. The question is whether you're smart enough to realize this ends badly for everyone if we don't handle it right." "Handle it how? You going to challenge me to a duel? Fight for your woman's honor?" The casual cruelty in his voice hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't the brother I'd grown up with, the one who'd taught me to drive stick shift and helped me ask Jenny Morrison to prom. This was a stranger wearing John's face, and he was enjoying my pain. "I'm going to give you one chance," I said quietly. "One chance to walk away from whatever this is, keep your job, keep your family relationships intact, and pretend this conversation never happened. And if I don't take your generous offer, then you'll find out what happens when you underestimate a Parrish—" John stood up, all 6'2" of him towering over my desk. "You threatening me, Tate? I'm educating you. There's a difference." Mary's voice crackled over the intercom. "Tate, your wife's online too. Says it's urgent." John and I stared at each other across the desk. Then I reached for the phone. "This isn't over," I told him. "No," John agreed. "It's not." Beth's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "Tate, I need you to come home right now. What's wrong? Just come home, please." The line went dead. I looked at John, who was watching me with something that might have been pity. "Family emergency?" he asked. Something like that. I drove home through streets that suddenly felt foreign, past houses where normal people lived normal lives without brothers who betrayed them and wives who celebrated their humiliation. The morning sun cast everything in harsh, unforgiving light. Beth's Honda was in the driveway, but so was a moving truck. Two men in coveralls were loading our couch onto the truck while Beth supervised from the front porch. She was still wearing last night's clothes, her makeup smeared, her hair disheveled. "What the heck is going on?" I demanded. Beth turned to face me, and I saw something in her expression I'd never seen before, complete cold indifference. "I'm leaving, Tate. We're done." Just like that? 16 years of marriage and you're done? 16 years of settling. 16 years of pretending you were enough. She handed me an envelope. "Divorce papers. My lawyer says you have 30 days to respond." The moving men continued loading our furniture while neighbors pretended not to watch from behind their curtains. Mrs. Henderson from next door was openly staring, probably already composing the gossip she'd spread at the grocery store. "Where are the girls?" "Safe. That's all you need to know right now." "Beth, they're my daughters too. You can't just—" "I can do whatever I want. That's the point, Tate. For the first time in 16 years, I'm free to do whatever I want." One of the movers approached us. "Ma'am, where do you want this?" He was holding our wedding photo, the one from the mantle. "Trash," Beth said without hesitation. I watched him toss our wedding picture into a garbage bag and felt something fundamental break inside me. Not just my heart. That had been dying by degrees for months. Something deeper. Something that had believed in loyalty and family and the basic decency of people you loved. "This is about John, isn't it? And Mark Halden?" Beth's laugh was like breaking glass. "This is about me finally realizing I deserve better than a small-town electrician who thinks changing a light bulb is an adventure. I built this life for us. The business, the house, everything we have. Everything you have. I never wanted any of this, Tate. I wanted more." The moving truck pulled away, taking half our possessions and all my illusions with it. Beth climbed into her Honda without another word. I stood in my driveway, holding divorce papers and watching my wife drive toward her new life. The envelope felt heavier than it should have, weighted with the death of everything I'd thought was real. My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Check Facebook. The party's just getting started." I opened the app and found a video posted to the Ironville community group. Beth, John, Mark, and Dana at Murphy's Bar. Clearly drunk, raising shots and laughing. The audio was crystal clear. "To the loser of Ironville," Mark's voice, loud and slurred. "Poor Tate," Dana giggled. "He never saw it coming." "Here's to sharing the prize," John added, and they all dissolved into laughter. The video had been posted an hour ago. It already had 47 comments, and counting. I closed Facebook and walked into my empty house. Half the furniture was gone, but the silence was complete. The video went viral by Ironville standards, which meant everyone in town had seen it by lunch. My phone started ringing at 10 a.m. and didn't stop. Concerned friends, gleeful enemies, and a few people who just wanted to hear my side of the story. I ignored them all and drove to Ruth's house. My mother lived in the same two-story colonial where John and I had grown up, on Maple Street in what used to be Ironville's nicest neighborhood. She was 71 years old, sharp as a razor, and still owned 51% of Parish Electric. More importantly, she'd survived my father's death, the factory closures, and 40 years of small-town gossip. If anyone could help me navigate this mess, it was Ruth Parrish. She opened the door before I could knock, took one look at my face, and said, "I saw the video. Come in. Coffee's on." Ruth's kitchen hadn't changed since 1985. Yellow wallpaper, white appliances, and a table where she'd settled every major family dispute for 3 decades. She poured 2 cups of coffee and sat across from me, waiting. "How bad is it?" I asked. "Bad, but not fatal. Your brother's an idiot, your wife's a hoe, and that Halden boy needs to learn some manners. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I'd always loved Ruth's directness. No sugarcoating, no false comfort, just brutal honesty served with fresh coffee. "I don't know yet. They've got me outnumbered and outgunned." "Bees. They've got you out stupid, which isn't the same thing." Ruth sipped her coffee. "Your father used to say that stupid people defeat themselves if you're patient enough to let them. Dad never had to deal with social media." "No, but he dealt with gossip, which is the same thing in a smaller package. You know what he'd tell you right now?" I shook my head. "He'd tell you that parish men don't roll over and die just because life gets hard. We adapt, we overcome, and we make sure anyone who underestimates us regrets it. John's family, too. John stopped being family the minute he decided your wife was more important than his brother. Family doesn't betray family, Samuel. That's the first rule." Ruth only used my full name when she was deadly serious. I felt something cold and calculating settle in my chest, replacing the hurt and confusion of the morning. What do you suggest? I suggest you remember that you're the smart one. You always were. John's got muscles and charm, but you've got brains. Use them. I spent the afternoon at Ruth's kitchen table, planning. Not revenge. That was too emotional, too reactive. Strategy. A careful, methodical campaign to reclaim my life and teach some people the difference between winning and surviving. By evening, I had a plan. Step 1 was reconnaissance. I drove to John's apartment complex on the north side of town, a collection of upscale units that catered to young professionals and middle-aged men trying to recapture their youth. His truck was in the parking lot, along with Beth's Honda and Mark's BMW. I sat in my pickup across the street, watching the windows of Unit 3B. The lights were on, and I could see silhouettes moving around inside. My wife, my brother, and his new best friend probably celebrating their victory. My phone buzzed. Rick Kowalski. Heard you had a rough day, his text read. Want to grab a beer and talk about it? Rain check, I'm working. Working on what? A project. I drove home to my half-empty house and opened my laptop. If Beth and John thought they could humiliate me publicly and walk away clean, they were about to learn something important about the internet age. Everything leaves a trail, and some trails lead to very uncomfortable places. Mark Halden's business website was professionally designed but poorly secured. It took me 20 minutes to find the back door, a WordPress plugin that hadn't been updated in 2 years. Another 10 minutes got me access to his client database. Interesting reading. Mark had been billing several clients for services never rendered, inflating hours and charging premium rates for basic troubleshooting. Nothing technically illegal, but definitely unethical. The kind of thing that would damage his reputation if it became public knowledge. John's finances were easier to access. We shared several business accounts, and I had legitimate reasons to review the books. What I found made my blood boil. He'd been skimming money from residential jobs for months, pocketing cash payments and underreporting income. Again, not quite criminal, but definitely grounds for termination and a very uncomfortable conversation with the IRS. Beth was harder to investigate, but social media provided plenty of ammunition. Her Facebook posts over the past 6 months told a clear story of increasing dissatisfaction with our marriage, complete with passive-aggressive comments about settling for less, and finally realizing what I deserve. The kind of posts that would look very different in divorce court than they had on my timeline. But the real treasure was in her private messages, which I accessed through the tablet we'd shared for years. Beth had been remarkably careless about covering her tracks, probably assuming I was too stupid or trusting to check. The messages painted a picture of calculated betrayal going back 8 months. Beth hadn't just fallen into an affair, she'd orchestrated it. She'd targeted Mark specifically because of his money and connections, seduced John to ensure she had inside information about our finances, and planned the whole humiliation campaign as a way to justify leaving me. One message to Dana was particularly revealing. The video was perfect. Now everyone will think Tate's pathetic, and I had no choice but to leave. Mark says his lawyer can get me half of everything, plus alimony. John's going to buy out Tate's share of the business for pennies on the dollar. By Christmas, I'll be Mrs. Mark Halden with a house on the lake and a real future. I printed everything. Screenshots, financial records, message threads, browser histories. By midnight, I had enough evidence to destroy all 3 of them in court, in business, and in the court of public opinion. But that wasn't enough. They'd humiliated me publicly, turned my own brother against me, and stolen my family. Legal victory would be satisfying, but it wouldn't be proportional. They wanted to play games. Fine. But they were about to learn that I'd been playing games longer, and I played for keeps. I opened a new browser window and started shopping for the tools I'd need. Nothing illegal, nothing that would land me in jail, but definitely nothing they'd expect from boring old Tate Parish. The war was about to begin, and I intended to win it. Murphy's Bar was Ironville's premier dive, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business and wasn't shy about discussing it. Wednesday night was trivia night, which meant the place would be packed with people who'd seen the video and had opinions about my situation. Perfect. I walked in at 8 p.m., wearing my best jeans and a confident smile. Conversation stopped as heads turned my way. I could practically hear the collective intake of breath as Ironville's most famous loser made his public debut. "Evening, folks," I called out cheerfully. "Beautiful night, isn't it?" I ordered a beer from Tommy, the bartender who'd been serving drinks at Murphy's since the Carter administration. He looked nervous as he slid the bottle across the bar. "Tate, you doing okay, man?" "Never better, Tommy. In fact, I'm celebrating." That got everyone's attention. The trivia game paused as people strained to hear what I was saying. "Celebrating what?" asked Jenny Morrison, my old high school crush who was now married to the fire chief. "Freedom. Turns out my wife was doing me a favor all along. She just saved me from wasting any more time on someone who wasn't worth it." I took a long pull from my beer and looked around the room. "Anyone seen the happy couple tonight?" I wanted to thank them personally. "They're not here," someone called from the back. "Shame. I brought gifts." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. "See? I've been doing some research since yesterday. Amazing what you can learn about people when you really start looking." The room was dead silent now. Even the jukebox seemed to sense the tension and stopped playing. "For instance, did you know that Mark Halden has been overcharging his clients for months? Billing for work he never did, inflating hours, the whole 9 yards? I've got documentation if anyone's interested." I pulled out a stack of papers and set them on the bar. Several people moved closer to look. "And my dear brother John? Turns out he's been skimming cash from residential jobs, pocketing money that should have gone to Parish Electric. That's theft, technically speaking." Tommy's eyes went wide. "Jesus, Tate, you sure about this?" "Dead sure. I've got bank records, client statements, the works. Amazing how careless people get when they think no one's paying attention." My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. "Speak of the devil. John wants to meet me outside. Excuse me, folks. This should be interesting." I walked out of Murphy's with half the bar following me. John was waiting in the parking lot, his face red with anger. Mark stood beside him, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. "What the heck do you think you're doing?" John demanded. "Having a conversation with my neighbors. You know, the people who saw your little celebration video. They were curious about the details." "You can't prove anything." I held up my phone. "Actually, I can. I've got screenshots of everything. Bank records, client complaints, billing discrepancies. Want me to share them on Facebook? I bet they go viral even faster than your toast to the loser." Mark stepped forward. "Look, Tate, maybe we can work something out. This doesn't have to get ugly." "It's already ugly, Mark. You made it ugly when you decided to steal my wife and broadcast it to the whole town. Now you get to live with the consequences." "You're bluffing," John said, but his voice lacked conviction. I opened Facebook on my phone and held it up so they could see the screen. "One click, John. One click, and everyone in Ironville knows exactly what kind of men you really are. Your clients, your friends, your mother. Ruth wouldn't believe you. Want to test that theory?" John's confidence cracked. He knew Ruth as well as I did, knew she had zero tolerance for dishonesty or disloyalty. If she saw the evidence I'd compiled, John would be out of the business and out of the family. "What do you want?" Mark asked. "Justice." Proportional response. "You humiliated me publicly, so now you get to experience the same thing." I hit post on the Facebook update I'd prepared earlier. Within seconds, my phone started buzzing with notifications as people began reading, commenting, and sharing. "There we go. Now everyone knows the truth about Ironville's newest power couple." John lunged at me, but I was ready for it. I sidestepped and let his momentum carry him into the side of his truck. He bounced off the metal and stumbled, more embarrassed than hurt. "Careful, brother. Assault charges would just make this whole situation more complicated." The crowd from Murphy's had grown to include people from neighboring businesses and passing cars. Someone was filming with their phone. By tomorrow, this confrontation would be all over social media. Mark grabbed John's arm. "Come on, let's get out of here." "This isn't over," John snarled. "No, it's not, but you're not going to like how it ends." I watched them drive away, then turned to address the crowd. "Show's over, folks. Thanks for coming out. Don't forget to like and share the post." There was nervous laughter as people began to disperse. Jenny Morrison approached me as I headed for my truck. "Tate, are you sure this is the right way to handle things?" "It's the only way, Jenny. They wanted to play in public, so we're playing in public. Fair's fair." I drove home feeling better than I had in days. The first move had been made, and it had found its target. Beth, John, and Mark were about to discover that destroying someone's life came with a price tag. But this was just the beginning. I had bigger plans for all three of them, and by the time I was finished, they'd wish they'd never heard the name Tate Parrish. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. "Ruth, I saw the Facebook post," she said without preamble. And I'm proud of you. It's about time someone stood up to those idiots. What's your next move? You'll see, Mom, you'll see. The parish electric board meeting was scheduled for Friday morning at 10 a.m. Ruth had called it after seeing my Facebook post, which had been shared over 200 times and generated enough comments to crash the company's website. I arrived early and set up my laptop in the conference room. Ruth came in at 9:45, followed by our accountant Dave Brennan and our lawyer Sarah Chen. John slunk in at 9:58, looking like he hadn't slept in days. All right, Ruth said, settling into her chair at the head of the table. Let's get this mess sorted out. John, you want to explain to me why my son is accusing you of theft? John's face was pale but defiant. It's not theft. I was handling cash transactions for residential jobs. Sometimes the paperwork got delayed. Delayed for how long? Sarah asked, flipping through the documents I'd provided. A few weeks, maybe a month or two. Try 6 months, I said, opening my laptop. I've got bank records showing systematic underreporting of cash payments. John's been pocketing the difference and hoping no one would notice. Dave leaned forward, studying the spreadsheet on my screen. Jesus, John, this is over $30,000. I was going to pay it back. When? Ruth's voice could have frozen fire. When you and that hoe finished destroying my other son's life? Beth's not a hoe. She's sleeping with 2 men who aren't her husband. What would you call her? The room fell silent. Ruth had never been one for delicate language, but hearing her sum up the situation so bluntly made everyone uncomfortable. Sarah cleared her throat. John, these allegations are serious. If Tate decides to press charges, you could face criminal prosecution. He won't do that. We're family. I looked across the table at my brother, this man I'd shared a childhood with, who taught me to throw a curveball and helped me through my first breakup, the man who was now sleeping with my wife and stealing from our family business. Family doesn't steal, John. Family doesn't betray. You stopped being my brother the day you decided Beth was more important than everything we built together. You don't understand. She was unhappy. You weren't giving her what she needed. So you decided to give it to her instead. How noble. Ruth slammed her hand on the table. Enough. John, you're suspended without pay pending a full audit. If we find any more discrepancies, you're fired and we're pressing charges. You can't do that. I own part of this company. You own 24%. I own 51%, and I can do whatever I very well please. Tate, you're acting president until this gets resolved. John stood up so fast his chair fell over. This is BS. You're choosing him over me. I'm choosing honesty over theft. Get out of my building. Fine, but this isn't over. Yes, it is, I said quietly. You just don't know it yet. John stormed out, leaving the rest of us in uncomfortable silence. Ruth looked older than her 71 years, worn down by the betrayal of one son and the pain of the other. I'm sorry, Mom, I said. For what? You didn't do anything wrong. John made his choices, and now he gets to live with them. The meeting ended with Sarah promising to review all of John's transactions and Dave beginning an immediate audit of the books. I drove back to my empty house, feeling like I'd won a battle but lost something more important in the process. My phone rang as I pulled into the driveway. Beth, you son of a witch, she said without preamble. You got John fired. John got John fired. I just provided the documentation. He was trying to help me, trying to give me a future you never could. By stealing from the family business? Real Prince Charming you've got there? At least he's a man. At least he knows how to take what he wants instead of sitting around feeling sorry for himself. Is that what you think I'm doing? Feeling sorry for myself? Aren't you? I looked at my reflection in the truck's rearview mirror. 3 days ago, I'd been a faithful husband and loyal brother living a quiet life in a small town. Now I was a single man with control of a successful business and a growing reputation for not backing down from a fight. No, Beth, I'm not feeling sorry for myself. I'm just getting started. What's that supposed to mean? It means you and John and Mark picked a fight with the wrong guy. You wanted to humiliate me publicly. Fine, but turnabout's fair play. You can't touch Mark. He's got connections, lawyers, money. We'll see about that. I hung up and walked into my house. The silence that had felt oppressive a few days ago now felt peaceful. No more walking on eggshells, no more pretending everything was fine, no more wondering why my wife looked at me like I was a disappointment. My laptop was still open on the kitchen table, displaying the parish electric website. Our phone had been ringing all day with new job requests. Apparently, the drama surrounding the company had generated more publicity than any advertising campaign we'd ever run. I opened a new browser tab and searched for Mark Halden's business address. Halden Tech Solutions operated out of a strip mall on Route 9, sandwiched between a nail salon and a Chinese restaurant. Not exactly the high-end operation his website suggested. Time for a field trip. The drive to Route 9 took 15 minutes through the part of Ironville that tourists never saw. Abandoned factories, boarded-up storefronts, and too many people with nothing to do and nowhere to go. Mark's strip mall was slightly better maintained than its neighbors, but not by much. I parked across the street and watched the building for an hour. 3 clients came and went, all of them elderly people who probably needed help with basic computer problems. Mark's BMW sat in front of the office like a diamond in a coal mine. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the board meeting news, heard John's out, good for you. A friend. The same person who'd sent me the hotel bar photo. Someone was keeping tabs on the situation and feeding me information. Interesting. I texted back, "Who is this?" "Someone who thinks you're getting screwed and wants to help even the odds." "Why?" "Because John Parrish is an a-hole and Mark Halden is a fraud. Your wife's just along for the ride." "What kind of help are you offering?" "The kind that comes with pictures and documentation. Meet me at the Denny's on Route 15 tomorrow at noon. Come alone." I stared at the phone for a long moment. This could be a trap, but it could also be exactly what I needed to finish what Beth and John had started. Either way, I was going to find out. The Denny's on Route 15 was the kind of place where truckers, insomniacs, and people having clandestine meetings went to avoid being seen. I arrived at noon and found a booth in the back corner, facing the door. Dana Walsh walked in at 12:05. Beth's best friend, the woman who'd been in that hotel bar video, raising a toast to my humiliation. She looked nervous as she approached my table, clutching a manila envelope like it contained nuclear secrets. "You're my anonymous friend?" I asked as she slid into the booth across from me. "Surprised?" "That's one word for it. What's the game, Dana? You were celebrating with them 3 days ago." "I was drunk 3 days ago and stupid, and I didn't know what they were really planning." The waitress came over and Dana ordered coffee. Her hands shook as she opened the envelope. "Beth's been lying to you, but she's been lying to everyone else too, including John and Mark." "How so?" Dana pulled out a stack of photographs and documents. "She's not planning to stay with either of them. She's playing them against each other, getting what she needs, then disappearing." The first photo showed Beth having lunch with a man I didn't recognize. Tall, well-dressed, expensive watch. They were holding hands across the table. "Who's that?" "David Morrison. He owns 3 car dealerships in Cleveland. Beth's been seeing him for 2 months. While she was also seeing John and Mark? And you. She's been juggling 4 men, Tate. You were just the only one who didn't know about the others." I flipped through more photos. Beth with David at restaurants, hotels, shopping centers. The timestamps showed they'd been meeting regularly while she was planning her celebration of my humiliation. "Why are you showing me this?" Dana's coffee arrived, and she wrapped her hands around the mug like she was trying to warm herself. "Because I've been Beth's friend since high school, and I've watched her destroy every good thing in her life. She's going to destroy John and Mark too, and probably take down your family business in the process." "And you care about that because?" "Because my husband works for Parrish Electric, has for 6 years. If the company goes under because of this drama, Bill loses his job. We can't afford that." I studied Dana's face, looking for signs of deception. She seemed genuinely upset, but then again, she'd seemed genuinely happy toasting my downfall a few days ago. "What else do you know?" "Beth's got a lawyer in Cleveland. She's planning to file for divorce in Ohio instead of here. Claim you abandoned her. She thinks she can get a bigger settlement that way." "Can she?" "I don't know, but she's got David Morrison paying for the lawyer. He thinks she's going to marry him once the divorce is final." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "So she's conning everyone." "That's Beth. She's always been good at making people believe what she wants them to believe." Dana pulled out more documents. Bank statements, credit card bills, phone records. "She's been planning this for almost a year, Tate. The affair with John was just to get inside information about the business. Mark was for money and connections. David's her exit strategy. And I was what exactly? The villain. She needed you to be the bad guy so everyone would sympathize with her when she left. That's why she made sure the video went viral. She wanted the whole town to see you as a pathetic loser who drove his wife away. I finished looking through the documents and leaned back in the booth. Beth's deception was more elaborate than I'd imagined. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd orchestrated an entire campaign to destroy my reputation while setting herself up for a comfortable new life. Why should I trust you, Dana? You were part of that video. Because I didn't know what she was really doing. I thought it was just an affair, maybe a divorce. I didn't know about the other men, the lawyers, the whole elaborate scheme. When I found out, I realized she'd been using me too. How? She had me spread gossip about you around town. Made me tell people you were controlling, that you didn't appreciate her, that she was thinking about leaving. I thought I was helping a friend. I was actually helping her build a case. Dana reached across the table and touched my hand. I'm sorry, Tate. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am genuinely sorry. I looked at this woman who'd been part of my humiliation and was now offering to help me fight back. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford, but information was a tool I could use. What do you want in return? I want Beth stopped before she destroys any more lives, and I want Bill to keep his job. Fair enough. What else do you know? Dana smiled for the first time since sitting down. I know where she's meeting David Morrison tonight, and I know Mark and John don't have any idea he exists. Interesting. It gets better. She's planning to clean out your joint accounts tomorrow morning, then disappear to Cleveland for the weekend. She thinks by the time you figure out what happened, she'll be safely hidden behind David's lawyers. I felt that cold, calculating feeling settle in my chest again. Beth thought she was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. Time to show her what a real strategist looked like. Dana, how would you like to help me teach your friend a lesson about the dangers of overconfidence? Her smile widened. I thought you'd never ask. We spent the next hour planning. By the time we left Denny's, Beth's elaborate scheme was about to become her worst nightmare. The war was entering its final phase, and I intended to win decisively. The Marriott Hotel on Route 9 had a bar that attracted Ironville's wannabe elite, people who thought expensive drinks made them sophisticated. Beth was there at 7 p.m., just like Dana had promised, sitting in a corner booth with David Morrison. I watched from across the street as John's truck pulled into the parking lot, followed by Mark's BMW. They walked into the hotel together, probably planning to surprise Beth with a romantic evening. They were about to get a surprise, all right. Just not the kind they expected. I waited 5 minutes, then followed them inside. The bar was dimly lit and crowded enough that I could find a seat at the counter without being noticed. Beth's booth was visible in the mirror behind the bottles of top-shelf liquor. David Morrison looked exactly like his photos, tall, confident, expensive. The kind of man who was used to getting what he wanted and paying for the privilege. He was leaning across the table, whispering something that made Beth laugh. John and Mark entered the bar and froze when they saw Beth with another man. They stood in the doorway for a moment, processing the scene. Then Mark strode toward the booth with John close behind. Beth? Mark's voice carried across the room. What the heck is going on? Beth looked up with an expression of pure panic. David Morrison looked confused, then annoyed as two angry men approached his table. Mark, John, I can explain. Explain what? John demanded. Who is this guy? David stood up, all 6'3" of him towering over John and Mark. I'm David Morrison, and I'm having a private dinner with my fiancé. Who the heck are you? Fiancé? Mark's voice cracked. Beth, what is he talking about? The entire bar had gone quiet, everyone straining to hear the drama unfolding in the corner booth. I sipped my beer and watched Beth's carefully constructed lies collapse in real time. David, these are just friends from my hometown. It's not what you think. Friends? John's face was red with rage. I'm sleeping with you. We're living together. And I'm paying for your divorce lawyer, Mark added. David Morrison looked from John to Mark to Beth, his expression shifting from confusion to understanding to cold fury. You're married, and you're screwing both of these idiots while planning to marry me? David, let me explain. Don't bother. Morrison threw a $100 bill on the table. Lose my number, you psychotic witch. He walked out of the bar without looking back, leaving Beth alone with two very angry men and a room full of witnesses. Someone was already filming with their phone. You lying hoe, John snarled. You've been playing all of us. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Mark demanded. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been running a con game on half the men in Ohio. Beth tried to stand up, but John grabbed her arm. You're not going anywhere until you explain what the heck is going on. Let go of me! John, Mark, let her go! I walked over to their booth, and all three of them stared at me like I was a ghost. Tate? Beth whispered. What are you doing here? Same thing you are. Having a drink and enjoying the show. I looked at John and Mark. Gentlemen, I think we need to talk. We don't have anything to say to you, Mark said. Oh, I think you do. See, I know about David Morrison. I know about the Cleveland lawyer. I know about Beth's plan to clean out our joint accounts tomorrow morning and disappear. I know everything. Beth's face went white. You can't know that. Dana told me. Turns out your best friend got tired of being used as a pawn in your little game. I pulled out my phone and showed them the photos Dana had given me. Beth's been playing all of us, boys. You were never her endgame. You were just stepping stones to something better. John looked at the photos, then at Beth, then back at me. You knew about this? I figured it out yesterday. Dana filled in the details this afternoon. Mark was scrolling through the photos on my phone, his expression growing darker with each image. You scheming witch. I paid for your lawyer. I bought you jewelry. I thought we had something real. We did. David was just your meal ticket, I finished. A rich guy from Cleveland who could give you the life you always thought you deserved. The crowd in the bar was getting restless, sensing that the drama was building to a climax. I could see phones recording from multiple angles. Here's what's going to happen, I announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. Beth's going back to Cleveland tomorrow to be with David Morrison. Except David just dumped her sorry self, so she'll be going alone. John, quote, S been fired from Parish Electric for theft. And Mark's about to lose most of his clients when they find out he's been overcharging them. You can't prove that, Mark said, but his voice lacked conviction. I already did. Posted all the documentation on Facebook this afternoon. Check your phone. Mark pulled out his phone, and his face went gray as he read the comments on my latest post. Dozens of his clients were demanding explanations, threatening to sue, promising to take their business elsewhere. You son of a witch. Careful, Mark. We're in public and everyone's filming. Wouldn't want to do anything you'd regret. Beth finally found her voice. Tate, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling, start over. Start over? I laughed, and it echoed through the silent bar. Beth, you've been lying to me for months. You've been sleeping with multiple men, planning to steal my money, and trying to destroy my reputation. There's no coming back from that. But I love you. No, you don't. You never did. You loved the idea of being married, the security, the respectability. But you never loved me. I looked around the bar at all the faces staring at us. Ladies and gentlemen of Ironville, I give you my ex-wife Beth Parrish, my ex-brother John Parrish, and their business partner Mark Halden, 3 people who thought they could destroy a man's life for their own entertainment. The crowd began to murmur, then talk, then laugh. Someone started clapping and others joined in. Within moments, the entire bar was applauding my little speech. Beth buried her face in her hands and started crying. John looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Mark was still staring at his phone, watching his business collapse in real time. I finished my beer and left a tip on the bar. Thanks for the entertainment, folks. Don't forget to like and share the videos. I walked out of that Marriott hotel feeling better than I had in months. Behind me, I could hear Beth screaming at John, Mark yelling at both of them, and the crowd enjoying every minute of the drama. The war was over. I had won, but the best part was yet to come. The video from the Marriott bar went viral within hours. Not just Ironville viral, actual viral, shared thousands of times across social media platforms. By morning, #Ironville drama was trending on Twitter, and news outlets were picking up the story. I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages, interview requests from local news stations, friend requests from strangers, and congratulations from people I hadn't talked to in years. The best message came from my daughters. Beau had texted at midnight, Dad, saw the video. Mom's crazy. Can we come home? I called them immediately. Dad? Bree's voice was small and uncertain. Are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. Better than fine. Are you two okay? We're at Grandma Morrison's house. Mom dropped us off yesterday and hasn't come back. Grandma's mad at her. Do you want to come home? Yes. Both girls answered at the same time, and I felt my heart lift for the first time in weeks. I'll be right there. I drove to Beth's mother's house on the other side of town, past the curious stares and pointing fingers of neighbors who'd seen the video. Mrs. Morrison met me at the door with my daughter's suitcases already packed. "I'm sorry, Tate," she said quietly. "I raised her better than this." "It's not your fault, Mrs. Morrison. She's my daughter. Her behavior reflects on all of us." She hugged Beau and Bree goodbye. "You girls take care of your father. He's a good man." We drove home through streets that felt different now. People waved from their yards, honked their horns, gave me thumbs up at traffic lights. I'd gone from being Ironville's most famous loser to its most celebrated survivor in less than a week. "Dad," Beau said from the passenger seat, "what's going to happen to Mom?" "I don't know, honey. That's up to her." "Is she in trouble?" "The kind of trouble you make for yourself, yes." Parish Electric's parking lot was full when we arrived at the office. Mary looked up from her desk with a huge smile. "Boss, you're famous. Phone's been ringing all morning with job requests. Channel 8 wants to interview you at 2 o'clock. Any word from John?" "He cleaned out his office yesterday evening. Left his keys and company credit cards on my desk." I walked through the building, greeting employees who seemed genuinely happy to see me. The drama of the past week had bonded us together in an unexpected way. We were the Parish Electric family, and we'd survived an attempted coup. Ruth called at noon. "Saw the news coverage. You handled that perfectly." "Thanks, Mom. How are you doing with all this?" "I'm proud of you and ashamed of John, but mostly I'm relieved it's over." "Is it over?" "For John, yes. He made his choice. For you, it's just the beginning. You've got a business to run and daughters to raise. That's what matters now." The Channel 8 interview went better than I expected. The reporter, a young woman named Jessica Chen, asked tough but fair questions about the situation. "Do you have any regrets about how you handled this?" she asked. "I regret trusting people who didn't deserve it. But I don't regret fighting back when they tried to destroy me." "What's next for you?" "I'm going to rebuild my life, raise my daughters, and run the best electrical contracting business in Ohio. Sometimes you have to tear something down before you can build it back stronger." The interview aired that evening during the 6 o'clock news. I watched it with Beau and Bree, who seemed impressed that their dad was on television. "You looked cool," Bree said. "Like a movie star." "Just a regular guy who refused to be a victim," I corrected. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Parrish? This is David Morrison." I put the phone on speaker so the girls could hear. "Mr. Morrison, I was wondering when you'd call. I wanted to apologize for my part in this mess. I had no idea Beth was married or involved with other men. She told me she was divorced. She told everyone what they wanted to hear. That was her specialty. I feel like an idiot. Don't. She fooled a lot of people, including me, for 16 years. Is there anything I can do? Any way to make this right?" I looked at my daughters, who were listening intently. "Just learn from it, Mr. Morrison, and maybe be more careful about who you trust with your heart." "I will. Good luck, Mr. Parrish. You seem like a decent man who got dealt a bad hand." "Thanks, but I'm playing a better hand now." After dinner, I tucked the girls into their old beds in their old rooms. Everything was exactly as they'd left it. Beth had only taken her own belongings when she moved out. "Dad?" Beau asked as I turned off her light. "Are you going to be okay?" "I'm going to be better than okay, sweetheart. We all are." "Promise?" "Promise." I went downstairs and poured myself a bourbon, then sat in my recliner looking at the family photos on the mantel. The wedding picture was gone, still in that garbage bag somewhere. But the photos of the girls remained. My phone buzzed with one last text of the day, from Dana. "Saw the news interview. You did good, Tate. Beth's leaving town tomorrow. John's moving back in with his ex-wife. Mark's business is finished. Justice served." I typed back, "Thanks for your help. Bill's job is safe." "Thank you. Maybe we can all move on now." Maybe we could. Beth was gone, John was out of my life, and Mark Halden would be dealing with lawsuits and bankruptcy for years to come. I had my daughters back, my business was stronger than ever, and my reputation had transformed from victim to victor. The last laugh in Ironville was mine, and it felt better than I'd ever imagined. I finished my bourbon and headed upstairs to bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new possibilities. But tonight, for the first time in months, I was going to sleep peacefully in my own house with my daughters safe in their beds. The war was over. I had won.